This is my techniques of a coach PowerPoint. Coaches need to have certain techniques to be effective. These may include demonstrations, instructions, observation, and setting goals and targets. They need to have a repertoire of techniques because it allows their players to be supported and so they can improve their performance. With these certain techniques, overall it can allow them to see their strengths and weaknesses, and with the assistance of the coach help point them in the right direction so they can achieve their potential. Other examples of techniques include adapting to individual needs, fitness assessments and programming, coaching diaries, profiling their performance, and finally designing effective practices. The first one is demonstration. Demonstration is when an individual, but specifically someone who is passing on their knowledge in a teaching format, i.e. a coach, gives a visual representation of the performance to aid learning. This is mainly used in conjunction with verbal instruction because whilst a coach is showing a certain skill, the verbal instruction adds more detail and explains the skill, making it more clear and concise. So it's easier for an individual sport such as tennis, between a coach and the player it's easier to demonstrate as it's one-to-one, so you only need to get one person's attention. Whereas team sports such as rugby is harder to demonstrate as there are more players who mess around and distract each other, but it is still achievable because there are a lot of demonstrations used in team sports because some people might not understand, so it's better than just giving a verbal instruction. I think it's more relevant to a team sport because of the number size. So some people in the group may not understand what skill you're portraying to them and therefore need to be shown along with a verbal instruction to make it more clearer. This is more shown at a beginner level because at an intermediate level players probably already know that particular skill from when they were younger, whereas beginners are new, so they need to be shown and may get confused with what is being asked of them. As they are beginners, the skill being shown may need to be broken down so it's clearer and more concise so they can understand it more easily. With demonstrations, you can use them with videos or images, so not only can you give a demonstration of the coach to the players, but also you can get up YouTube videos and other images to, if they don't understand just the coach's kind of instruction and demonstration, you can use other things like the images which will help them see it a bit more clearer. It can be carried out in a slower pace, so demonstrations can be it's better to do a demonstration once through and then check whether they didn't understand it and then break it down. So if they don't understand it, they can be repeated or broken down and each stage can be shown individually, and you can keep rewinding and carry it out in a slow pace so it's more clearer and more easy for them to understand. You can overcome language barriers, and it's also seen as a mental picture because you're visualizing what you're being asked to do rather than just saying throw the ball. You're actually being shown what throwing a ball is actually like, how you position your arm and where to place the ball. But it's sometimes ineffective because it might not have been seen by such as like a individual sport. It's easier to be seen because there's no one blocking your way, whereas a team sport like football, if you're showing how to like dribble the ball, then it might not be seen because like other people are in the way, and also sometimes you pick up bad habits, so players can pick up a potential bad habit from their coach, so their coach might give a demonstration of something but it might not be technically correct, so they might think, oh, that's like how to do it, but you pick up a bad habit. And sometimes it needs verbal explanation, so like along with the cues, along with the technical instruction, demonstrations aren't always clear on their own, so they do need kind of little cues to help people understand them more. The second one's technical instruction. Technical instruction is a verbal communication where it is used to pass along technique or organise for a training session. It also can be used to give orders. In order for this to be successful, it would help if a coach knew which coaching point for the particular technique, although this is not necessary because it would help if the coach knew what they were talking about so they could show and demonstrate and instruct better and be more effective the way they teach. But if they don't understand what they're doing, a technical instruction can be quite hard, but it is possible. So it's effective because it's used with generally demonstration, like we said before, because it's a verbal communication, so it makes it more clearer. And also, again, like demonstration, you can repeat instructions, and they do focus on specific coaching points. So, for example, if you're saying to someone, pass the ball like this in football, rather than just a demonstration on its own, instructions, they point out specific techniques and points and skills that people need to know. And also with instructions, you can test your players' knowledge. So you can ask them questions and they will be able, if they aren't able to answer it, it means they understand. And if they don't understand it because they can't answer it, then you can go back and repeat the instruction and go through it again. However, instructions sometimes, because you're just talking, they kind of lose focus of the group, so it's not as interactive, and so therefore their attention's not there at all times, because they get bored and they kind of look around and on the floor, and they just don't actually, they kind of zone out, so they don't actually focus in on the coach anymore. And sometimes it can confuse people, because if there are too many coaching points when you're if you're coaching football, for example, if there are too many instructions, it can be confusing. So as it's not being broken down, as it's literally going through a linear sequence of points of what they need to do, it's hard to retain all that information. So that's why people, sometimes individuals and players, can get a bit confused. And obviously sometimes the language is quite complicated. So for example, like a beginner basketball player wouldn't really know what a layup is. They wouldn't really know what that is. So another like advanced language, when you're pointing out specific techniques and drills. So for example, like in dance, we have a pirouette and a pas de bourrée. Some people might not know what that is, so it's kind of hard to just give that instruction out. You need to be able to break it down and help people that don't understand. And the last one is observational analysis. So this is just like some photos of statistics and assessing body position. It forms the basis of evaluation before creating training programs or setting goals or creating techniques. This observation can be either a video or a live analysis, and by analysing players, many coaches are able to spot individuals who have potential and to identify improvements in their players. So this is quite a good technique, because it highlights their strengths and weaknesses. So if you're just watching your player, you can see what they're not doing. So for example, like the angle of their leg, whether they need to be more low down when they're saving a ball in football, if they're a goalkeeper, if they need to bend their knees more so they can get that power to jump for the ball. And you can also, it highlights the weaknesses as well, and obviously their strengths, so what they're doing well. And it's quite good because you can record it. So like I said in the instruction, you can video it, because this just means you can replay it and repeat it. So if you miss something, like compared to a live analysis, it would be easier because you can keep going back to it, whereas a live analysis you can't. You can ask them to repeat their action, but they might do it differently and they might do it right that time. So you need to be able to assess what's good and what's bad in the video. And there's also software available for that, so like Dartfish, but it can be expensive and it's time consuming to record everything. So it's kind of a waste of a coach's time and it's expensive, so it costs more. And it removes bias, so it also repeats, it can have repetitions for progress. So if you continue watching your player, you can see whether they're making any progress, and that also kind of goes along with the highlighting the strengths and weaknesses part, because if you see your player having their strengths in front of you and their weaknesses, you can kind of see what they're doing well. And if you keep on repeating, and then for example, if you've got something wrong, like in football, if you've passed the ball wrong or you've made a tackle incorrectly, and then you're taught how to do it correctly, you can then see, if you just keep repeating the skill, that will continue to increase your progress level. Again, it is dependent on what sport. Like for an individual sport, it'd be easier, such as tennis, because it is only one-to-one, so you are only watching one person. Whereas if it's a team sport like basketball, you are watching loads of people and you only have one pair of eyes, so you are constantly having to look at everyone. So while someone's doing something really well, there might be someone that's doing something really bad, and this can, like, you'll just miss that in the game. So it's better to have a one-to-one sport as well. But also, if it is a one-to-one sport, it depends what kind of sport, what one-to-one sport it is, because if it's, for example, ping pong, that's quite fast, so you might need to record your player doing it so you can repeat it, because if you're counting how many points they get, it is quite fast, so you might miss some, so it just might be not very reliable. So if you video it, you are able to go back and see where you missed the points. And the last one for that was just skill familiarity. And that's the end of the video.